Welcome to Yoga Biz Camp with myself, Michael J. I'm a yoga business coach with 25 plus years of experience as a creative, a total tech geek, and a yoga business owner. Today I have the amazing Rachel Scott joining me, and Rachel and I have a fun yet casual conversation about the future of yoga teachers and the hustle that's required to make it in this industry today. Enjoy. Welcome to another episode of Yoga Biz Camp, and today I've got a very special guest. And even though I haven't seen her in person, I kind of consider her a friend. Rachel Scott. Rachel is your yoga education expert, and welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much. It's always so fun to hang out with you, just chat with you about all sorts of things. So I'm delighted to be here.
I'm just going to read your bio, Rachel. So a teacher, trainer, author, and education expert, Rachel is committed to helping teachers and studios manifest their vision, passion, and potential with a Master's of Science in Instructional Systems and Learning Technologies. She helps studios and teachers to create high-quality in-person and online training and courses. Like many of us, she has worn many hats during her yoga career: teacher manager, studio director, curriculum developer, departmental director, entrepreneur, and brings all of these to the table as a thought partner and ally for her clients. You are one busy person. It's always weird having that read back to you, isn't it? It's always a strange feeling.
It's so weird.
But so today we're going to be talking about the hustle that yoga teachers are having and the changes in careers and opportunities since COVID hit. But I just went through your website this morning, Rachel, and I've got a list here. Speaking of hustle, 200-hour yoga teacher training, 20 anatomy lessons, a 200-page asana guide, asana practices, meditation, pranayama, videos, 8 humanity trainings, 8 professional trainings, free giveaways, a very active YouTube channel, 20 podcast interviews, 5 television appearances, 14 speaking appearances, and 20 web roundups and interviews.
Woo!
Talk about hustle.
That's so fun.
I am always amazed. I'm just always amazed when I look at what you do, how much you do. It's really pretty amazing. And every time I get together with Rachel, let's just go back. We met via the Yoga Alliance forums because her and I are very active in supporting yoga teachers and studios on there and in other places. And so we connected because we've got a lot of similarities. And every time we chat, I think we book a 30-minute, we end up talking for an hour, and I feel like I could talk to you for another 2 hours. So normally I'm standing up doing these podcasts. Today I'm sitting back with my cup of tea, and I just want to chill and chat with you about what's going on in our industry. So again, another welcome. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to see you.
I have a ton of respect for what you're doing, because you just, where do you find the time for all of that?
Oh, well, I think it helps that I'm older, that I'm old. No, but seriously, like I remember, it's just because I've been around a while too. So I was thinking about it. I wrote a bio out recently for a business of yoga thing for a bunch of teacher trainees that I was doing. And it was such a cool exercise to write out like how long it actually took for things to start happening. Because sometimes as young teachers, and this is sort of skipping around a little bit, sometimes we feel like I'm going to get out of my yoga teacher training and then I need to be in a conference, or I need to be, on a podcast, or I need to be writing for Yoga International. And I was looking at kind of the timeline of those things. I didn't do those until I'd been teaching for at least 10 years. So so I've been teaching since 2003.
Yeah, I think we're about the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So with that, there's been, so I've had time to do things. And now, because as I started coming up in yoga, we started entering into a little bit of the digital age in terms of being able to create things of value that can remain, like videos and stuff like that, as opposed to feeling like I have to teach classes. So it's really, I'm grateful for that, because it means that there's an archive of work that then people can,
Yeah.
you know, use. So it's like you create it and yay, it still is there. So that's in fact one of the opportunities in terms of talking about hustle and teachers, where I think that things have, I think that COVID, although it's a dark horse, it's also been good news for people in our industry, like our yoga teachers and our yoga studios, who
Yeah.
are trying to create a little bit more resilience in this
Yeah.
market, especially for yoga teachers who can now have
Yeah.
increased opportunity to get to work in a way
Yeah.
that they maybe didn't have before.
Well, and a big part of one of your big parts of your business is your curriculum for teacher trainings for studios. And I know one of my clients in South Delta here near Vancouver, I looked and she's using one of your trainings. So I think you've done really, really well with that. We're talking a lot about teachers today. And when they come out, I've owned a studio and I've hired people right out of yoga teacher trainings. And what I did find was they're not quite ready out of teacher training.
Yeah.
Right. It
Yeah.
takes time to find your voice. Even simple things about projecting to the back of the room and the tone of your voice and building that confidence up. And I think you're right. A lot of people want to go straight to the big picture stuff, but I think you've got to become a good teacher first.
Absolutely. And you know what's funny is that I recently had a newer teacher ask me, she said, "What's my niche? Do you think this is my niche? This is my niche?" And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, I think that, there's so much pressure to differentiate that we kind of put the steps in the wrong order. I so agree with you. I mean, 200 hours, basically after 200 hours, you basically have the skills to go and practice.
Yeah.
I taught for free, for
Yeah.
my first,
Me too, my friends.
yeah, and my friends, family, free donation classes, very small studios by donation, until I became skillful enough and to, to kind of step it up and then work in studios. But it just takes practice.
It
And
really does.
so when I tell these, and what I told this girl, I said, don't worry about finding your niche. Your niche is a co-creation that you discover. You don't just decide, my niche is going to be blah, I'm going to be this kind of teacher. It's like, I think it's give yourself like 5 years of teaching and seeing then how you like to teach, because you might surprise yourself. You go in thinking, oh, I'm an alignment teacher. And then all of a sudden you're like, what jazzes me up is the subtle body so much. I love that. I love these meditations. I love bringing in kind of like the subtle energy. And so you discover who you are as a teacher rather than determining it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's more artsy than that.
Yeah. And I think the last year, so we're talking about sort of hustle and post-COVID, and I think, there was a lot happened in 1 year in our industry. And I think for people like you and I, it was, and people similar to us, it was perfect timing, because you and I are really geeky. We like the tech side of stuff, right? And so, when it happened and the studios closed, I know I was able to just pivot to, I already had the good camera, I got lighting and microphone, and boom, I was able to set up. But there was a lot of, I know we were supporting a lot of people last year on the actual technical side of setting up. But I think it thrust us into an area that we needed to go anyway, right? But it would have gone there. But I think that last year just thrust us into having to get all set up. So have you been working with people, kind of creating digital presence in the last year?
I've done a little bit of coaching in that area. But my last year has been a lot about, we even chatted about this when I started. When I told you, I was like, okay, I'm going back online to teach now.
Yeah.
Because it had been a while. And then, but my teaching has been mostly for my sequencing mentorship. So I run a mentorship program for new teachers. And what I've discovered is that I don't even advertise my classes really publicly. It's really just, those classes are really just for those students to come and work and see their sequencing in action and things like that. So, and so most of the most of the counseling, I guess, that I did in terms of helping people get set up was through the Yoga Alliance Forum, in terms of offering suggestions or in terms of writing blogs about it that were hopefully helpful to people, and of
Yeah.
course with my own teacher trainees to kind of coach them into that world as well. Um, yeah, but I mean, you've done a lot of work in that space to help
Yeah.
people kind of make that transition of like, okay, how do we do this? And also, what platforms do we use? Because
Yeah.
people are like, where do I go? Right.
Yeah.
Um, and you're quite happy with the platform that you use. Which one is it
Yeah,
again?
oh, I
Just
was
can't
going to save
remember.
that for later, but let's go into
Oh,
it. I had that on my list. Let's go into that because I mean there is the tech side of all that stuff, and I'm a mind body certified person, 13-year user of mind body, a mind body champ, and all of this stuff. But I don't recommend mind body for yoga teachers yet. I mean they may have some stuff coming down the line, but right now. I think for a solo yoga teacher, it's very, very difficult to make money on that platform because of the overhead of that. And so, you can't really have much of a profit mentality when your overhead is quite high. So, yeah, I'm not running my own classes at the moment. I was running my own classes in January and February, did really well with it, but the coaching has kind of taken off. And so I've been focusing a lot more on that. But I was using PunchPass, and it's a very nice, simple system, affordable price, has built-in VOD. And they were, I think, one of the first ones that kind of offered something at a pretty decent price. But since then, I mean, I've had so many software meetings in the last few months. It's kind of crazy. Wellness Living, Ribbon, Sutra Fit, Bookie, interval. I mean, the list is going on, and it seems to be growing. Like they have just come out of the woodworks, right? Which is great. It kind of makes things a little bit more accessible for the yoga teacher to be able to have a space. So you were using Ribbon?
I was using Ribbon. In fact, I
Yeah.
still am. But I've also talked with Offering Tree, which is the other one that I
Yeah.
kind of know about. And they're kind of Offering Tree is more of an all-in-one. So for yoga teachers out there who are listening, who are kind of like,
That's
you
kind of
know,
like you got a website with that, right? I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you don't have a website already and you kind of want an all-in-one, basically it's like a business card or it's hanging out your shingle. So it doesn't have to be super elaborate, right? So sometimes websites can feel sort of overwhelming. So Offering Tree
Yeah.
kind of does double duty of I'll be your website and I'll also, integrate with Zoom and allow
Yeah.
you to, have videos and really rudimentary courses. Basically, it's like hosting videos with some text if you
Yeah.
wanted to go that way. So that's like, yeah. And again, great price point. These are really good solutions um, for yogis out there who are now kind of ready to hang their shingle out and,
Yeah.
and teach some people.
Well, I think right now I'm recommending that my clients find something that has the video on demand portion of it, because video on demand used to be an expensive add-on for
Yeah.
things, but some of these are really offering them internally now. And I think the one, I would go for one, probably, or recommend one that has different ways of monetizing the VOD
Mm.
within the software. Some of them you can just have an all access pass to it, but some of them, I believe, Interval, which is a newer one, I believe you can really sell an individual video, or you can sell a package or a subscription. So I think those things are probably very important moving down the road. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And just to step back for a minute, like big picture, um, I'm really, I mean, it's terrible for yoga studios. Like one of my studio that I worked at in Vancouver, Y Yoga has just
yeah,
is closing two more locations.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's been so hard on studios.
yep,
And on the upside of things is so good for teachers who are able to now kind of take out the middleman in terms of their own
yeah.
presence and in terms of what they're offering. So, I mean, as it does, I think that studios will always, I mean, what is the future of the yoga studio? Michael, what
Well,
do you think?
I think the future is hybrid for sure. And I think it's tough to say right now, because right now it's so different in every vicinity. Like across the world, we're all in different places with reopening. And I know here right now for the next couple of weeks, we're still, the studio I sold, I think can have 8 people in there right now, where we used to have 30 or something.
my gosh.
So what I am seeing is though that the yoga studios that have limited capacity have significantly increased their prices because the that real estate, the yoga mat, it costs more to have that space now, right? So there's been a big that's going to change though as things reopen. But what I'm seeing in the Mind Body forums and all of that, it is definitely gone to a hybrid model. It's definitely forced the studios to have to do that model. And then I think as a teacher, I think it becomes a different dilemma when you're teaching, because now a teacher that may have been an interactive teacher walking around the room making adjustments, now are they walking around the room doing what they did before, or are they vocally demonstrating from the mat and also having to manage speaking to an audience on the internet? So I think that's going to have its own. It's just going to change things a lot.
Yeah, I would not, I have to say, like, I don't know about you, but as a yoga teacher, if I went into a studio and I had to teach to a camera in studio, I don't think I would like that. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I love touching people, and I know it's, like, that's my whole, like, if I'm going to
Me
be
too.
in class, that's what I love to do.
Yeah.
So I'd rather, if I have to teach on a video camera, I'd rather just teach from home, and
Yeah.
then studio to be a place where you can actually
Yeah.
connect in person with
Yeah.
people.
And
Right. So
I enjoy teaching from home. I still
it's
teach I
nice.
think I still teach 4 or 5 classes for the studio that I sold. And I am not having to sit on the highway and go through tunnel traffic and or any of that. I mean, literally, it's like my coffee table comes out the living room, my yoga mat gets put down, the lights get switched on, boom, let's go. And and the other thing I have found, and I've actually worked with a lot of studios on this over last year, is working on creating that community online, and it is possible. And I think I was working with studios last year because the teachers are having a problem with was their students not turning the cameras on, and so the teachers are just teaching to dead space, right? Then like
Yeah,
it's
it's the
not
worst.
interactive. I'm a really interactive teacher, which means I'm 70% at my computer and 30% on my mat. And, I am still looking. I have to look. I have to see. I want to see. I want to be able to call people by name. Jane, lift your right knee. Jane, So I have found there are great ways of teaching online. And one of the things for teachers is you need to put your requests out there of what you need from the students.
Mm.
And people follow along. So, it's like, I just say, I'm a better teacher if I can see you. You're going to have a better experience if I can see you. And then if I also spend 10, 15 minutes before class with cameras on, welcoming, having conversations, they're more likely to leave the camera on when the class starts. The other thing is, I was a demanding teacher, so I'm demanding online too. And, I said, I want people to say namaste together at the end of class. I don't want it to be a silence. I just direct my students to say at the end of class, if it's easy for you, reach over and unmute your unmute your microphone so we can all say namaste together. And I would say 80% do.
That's really nice. Yeah, I remember we had that conversation um, before I was going back into that space, and I connected with you about how you were doing it. And
Yeah.
I love the interactive piece of it. And I think that this is what is probably something for newer teachers to get used to, because when you look out and you see a lot of the Yoga Glow or whatever, the online Do
Yeah.
Yoga With Me, all the online classes that you see, it's teachers speaking and demonstrating at the same time, which is a pre-recorded class, but
Yeah.
that is not a live Zoom class. And so
Yeah.
for people to make the distinction, oh, when I teach my live Zoom class, it's not about me just demoing the whole thing.
Yeah.
Actually, it's
Yeah.
like, but sometimes I think they don't have that as a, like, if they haven't been to your class, and in most of my classes, that's what I do too. It's like I sit and I watch people
Yeah.
and I give them feedback, and it's so much more fun for me as a
Well,
teacher.
because you are a teacher, you're not just showing a
Yeah,
flow like YouTube. You're teaching, you're instructing.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because most of my students are my mentees as well, I want to give them feedback on their practices. And I want people to feel seen because, as you know so well, this is a space where people have not been seen, especially if they're
Yeah.
just following along. So I think for I think if we're thinking about, hey, how would we, say teachers out there, how do you distinguish your online classes? You've just given people an amazing window into how to do that really beautifully, which is don't do the practice, like teach the
Yeah,
practice.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
And it's because we didn't go into this just to be on a mat and show people what we can do, right? You
Not
know,
me, at least.
yeah. Well, and I'm going to be completely honest here, and this, may not sit with everybody, but after all these years, almost 20 years of teaching, I actually don't care about the poses as much as I used to.
I don't either.
I'll be completely frank. I don't care if your left heel lines up with your right heel or if it's by your arch or anything like that as much as I did when I first started. I think when you first start, you have to learn those technicalities. All I care about now, I really don't give a shit about the pose. I care um, that they stay through the practice and that they leave feeling better than when they came into the class. That's it.
Yeah,
It's really simple
absolutely.
for me
Yeah.
now. So it actually takes a lot of pressure off too. And I'm not, for newer teachers listening to this, I'm not saying don't do the work. I think you do have to start with the foundations and you do have to learn the technicalities and all of that stuff. I think you have to go through that. I think a lot of, I don't know, more senior teachers like us might agree more that it's more about sort of the energy of it.
Yeah, it's about, yeah. And it's about, for me, it's about, it doesn't even, yeah, I say this to my students too. I'm like, the poses, it's easy to think that yoga is about the poses because that's what we see so clearly. Like
Yeah,
that's the most obvious thing about it. But
yeah,
really, it's not about the poses at all. It's about how we bring ourselves into presence through
yeah.
using the poses as kind of like the
The
scaffold or the
gateway.
road that we walk.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like the poses are just the way to get there, but they are not the purpose of the practice.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's a
yeah, so
nice,
I'm
it's
like,
a nice feeling after all these years. It is, I remember when I first started, I did the work like yourself. First of all, I apprenticed under my apprenticeships don't happen anymore. So I want to talk to you about the mentorship in a second, because
okay.
apprenticeships don't really happen anymore. So when I finished my teacher training, with my teacher, I went through a year-long process with her, and it was brutal. I am not kidding you. The teachers back then were tough. They were Ashtanga
They
teachers.
were. Oh yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Say
yeah.
no more, my friend. Say no
Ashtanga,
more.
Ashtanga teachers, and the teachers were tough. But I am so grateful for that year experience because, I put the time in there and I learned on the job, so to speak, learned teaching. And I got weekly written assessments. I still have them. And they are brutal. Like they are, Michael, you're repeating this word too much. Michael, this word does it. So there were a lot of it was about vocal skills.
Yeah.
So I'm really, I remember putting lefts and rights, mirror teaching. I'm a big believer in mirror teaching, and I know a lot of schools
Mhm.
do not teach that way. And so
Mhm.
it is a retraining of the brain. But I feel that when you're mirror teaching, it's not about you, it's about making it easier for them to follow. And so
Yeah.
it's a difficult process to retrain your brain when your entire life, your right hand has been your right hand. and
Where's your
then
right hand?
and
Yes.
then all of a sudden your right hand is now your left hand. And so I remember I had an L and an R on the front of my mat. And then when I mentored teachers at the studio, I had on the back very where they were teaching from, they could see the door behind the students. And so on each side of the door, the main entryway door, I had a massive L and an R on there. So that when they were teaching out there, they could visually see very quickly, to get that cue. Because I will say, do not ask a yoga teacher directions.
It's true.
Is that a left or
It's
is that
true.
a right? No turn. Oh, no. So can you tell me, I want to go back to that mentorship because that's
Mm.
such I just think that's such an important part that's missing. And I feel that by doing that, you're really filling in a gap to create better teachers.
Yeah. When I was working at Y Yoga, because exactly as you said from the beginning, you come out from a 200-hour and you're not really ready to teach. You're ready to practice.
Yeah.
You're ready to like put your tools.
You've
You're
learned the
ready to show
shapes of the
your
poses.
tools.
That's it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and some cues, but it's hard to put them all together.
Yeah.
It's like you have a bunch of tools and then you have to figure out how to use them. You got to go build a house or something, right?
Yeah.
So, and so we at Y Yoga, we had, I mean, when at all the studios I've worked at, they had mentorship programs. So when I went through my 200-hour into my 500-hour, we always had we had mentorships and mentor meetings, of course, and that was the bridge like from the 200-hour into the 500-hour into teaching.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so mentorship to me, which is like, okay, you've just finished teacher training, now what? It bridges the gap between the training and the integration of your skills. And
Yeah.
so the mentorship that I'm offering, it's so funny because it's called a sequencing mentorship, but it's actually, I'm like, it's actually just it's much more broad than that, because we do basically we do peak post sequencing. So that's kind of the scaffold of it,
Yeah.
a different pose every week. But I share with them like my teaching tips. I share with them like stages of the peak. I share with them class intentions. And then I teach 2 classes a week, both to the same peak pose, but in different styles. So I teach a hatha class and a vinyasa class so that they can see that you can have essentially the same kind of logic for your sequencing, same similar poses, but have very different experiences depending on the style that you're doing too. So, and then we have monthly meetings where we connect. And at first it was just like, oh, we'll just have monthly meetings and connect and stuff. And now I'm like, no, we have monthly meetings and we work on skills. So I've sort of realized like, oh, these skills are necessary. Like, how do you teach an all levels class? How do you stage a pose effectively in a way that's inclusive and a way that's very specific and pragmatic? So
Yeah.
now I use those meetings to actually workshop skills. But I think it's I think it's really rewarding, and it's for teachers who are like finished with their 200-hour. It could be teachers who are newly finished a 500-hour, or teachers who did, say, an Ashtanga training or a set series training, and they want to learn how to create their own creative sequences safely. So, we touch on alignment and anatomy through all of these different pieces too. So even though it's sequencing, that's kind of a doorway to just kind of a sort of an array of teaching skills that kind of go with that.
Are they live trainings or recorded?
The weekly sessions, the weekly kind of curriculum is recorded. I did that the first time through. Recorded everything. So that's recorded and they can just watch me. And then the classes are obviously live and the monthly meetings are live. So it's kind of a balance between the two, because some people never can come to the classes either. They do everything pre-recorded, which is, I like being in the room with people. That's like what's so fun, is to be live with people. But I figure, hey, any way you can get the information that supports you, sure. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on sort of the moving forward? Because we want to talk a little bit about the new landscape and the hustle. So, I mean, you're exactly right. I mostly worked with studios because that was my world. And then last year, I still am working with studios, but I saw a big uptick in yoga teachers because they were displaced from the studios, closed down. And then they were like, okay, well, I got to do something to make money here. And so they created online things. And then they're kind of like, okay, well, maybe I can create my own business out of this. So, I see a big uptick of that. But I'm also a little wary that not everybody can make a success of that. It is hard to put yourself out there and compete with, like you said, the Yoga Glows, the Apple Fitnesses, the $9.99, $12.99 subscriptions of Yoga International. So what's your kind of thoughts along that? What's going on?
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of, in a funny way, everything's changed and everything has stayed the same. Because I think for new teachers who are putting themselves out there, I mean, it's, they're not going to be competing with Yoga Glow
Yeah.
or with Guy, whoever. They're not going to be competing with them. What they have to do instead is build grassroots, just like we used to when we
Yeah.
used to build a new class. It's like,
Yeah.
who are your friends? Who are your family? Who are
I
your
love
friends
it.
of your friends? Who
Yeah.
are you networking? So we think locally. Like, I think one of the things that gets so intimidating is that we think I have to compete with, Shiva Ray or Sean Corn.
Yeah.
Maybe they date me. I don't know. I don't know who the youngins are, but I have to compete with all of these big mega stars. And it's like, no, no, no. Create your local yoga class, which happens to be online. And so I think it's still a matter of starting modestly. And you're right, not everybody's going to be able to make a full-time career out of that, but that's always been the case with yoga teaching, is that sometimes people want to teach 2 classes a week. Sometimes people want to teach 25 classes a week. And so it really depends on what your goals are for your career, what your tolerance is. Like, I'm a big fan that your yoga teaching should serve your life, not be your life. Because we have this idea that it needs to be everything. And no, it's like, I can actually have a really rewarding teaching career, teaching 2 or 3 classes a week to my dedicated group of students.
Yeah.
So am I going to have another job? Yes, absolutely. Right. So it's also, especially for newer teachers coming out, we always used to tell them, don't quit your day job. It's kind of like, just let it grow organically, so that you can see how this works for you, so that you don't start hating your yoga career or feeling desperate, or scared, but instead it can be an added on. It can always be a plus to your life, and be something that adds value to you as well as to your students.
Yeah.
So,
I completely agree with you, and I completely agree with the starting local. One of my first questions when I'm working with a new teacher or a teacher that's trying to build a business is, who do you know? Like, what are your circles? Where are you known? Because really, the only reason for somebody to choose you over a million other people is that they trust you.
yeah.
Right. So
And they vibe with you and they like
yeah,
you. And
yeah. And I will say I've been changing things a little bit with quite a lot, and I've been talking about this a lot in the last and on a couple of episodes ago with my client Annette, and that is I'm working more with teachers. A little bit more away from just doing virtual offerings or virtual, like multiple classes a week virtually, to them doing a registered series. I know you work a lot on course creation, and
yes.
what I'm finding with that is I say this one daily, but people will pay for a solution to a problem. And so when I work with teachers and studios, but a lot of teachers with the courses, is working with them to find their purpose, trying to figure out what their audience is, and then trying to figure out what problems their audience is, and then creating a course around the solution to that problem. Right. And so I'm finding that, so 2 episodes ago, if you listen to Annette, we just rocked it out with her. I've been using her as my sort of guru in this area because she's done such a good job of it. But she managed to create a 1-month course with her direct audience that solved a problem for them, and almost made $2,000 in a 1-month course. Right. So when you can do that, then it becomes a viable business, and you're not having to hustle as much. It's like hustles all up front for one series, and then you can kind of just nurture that series for a little while and take a little bit of a break from the hustle, because the hustle can get exhausting.
Yes. Yeah. The hustle can get exhausted. The hustle is
We talked
exhausting.
about this a little bit before, but it's like
So
it has
true.
peaks and valleys, right? And also with your
Yes.
confidence.
Yes. Well, and lots of people think too, and I love the idea of doing the pre-registered courses. I think that's so brilliant, because sometimes people can get, like, building a class. If students haven't invested money in it and then they don't show up, it takes a long time to build a class organically. Like in a studio, it takes 6 months. Well,
Yeah.
that's going to be the same thing online, if
Yeah.
not worse, right? And so when you do a pre-registered course, the students then are like, nope, I know I want to commit to this. And then the fact they've already paid for it helps hold them to committing to showing
Absolutely.
up.
Absolutely.
Right. And so
Yeah.
everybody wins. So I think that's so super smart. And in fact, that's what my mentorship is really, because the folks in my mentorship who are the ones who come to my classes have paid for like 4 months,
Yeah.
right? So it's like a 4-month
Yeah.
series that we're doing with them. And absolutely, I think that is so much, it's such a better solution than just like
Yeah.
the online with the fingers crossed, kind of like, oh, I hope,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
right?
and when I launched my classes in January, I launched four classes for January, February, and I made, I think it was almost about $8,000 from four classes, right? So that's
It's
pretty
great.
good. That's pretty good
Yeah.
for, they were all registered. But I'll tell the thing that helped that was having a system that had video on demand, because
Mm,
that took away a lot of those. I can't commit to this series because I'm going to be away this week.
yeah.
So, then you just like, oh, don't worry about that. You can catch up on video on demand. And the other thing, it gave those people that were once a week, it gave them the ability to practice that class. So, for example, what did I do? I did a stress release, a relaxed class. I did a yoga for men class and a beginner class. And the beginner and the beginner course and the yoga for men course it's a progressive series. And so what was great about that is that they could take week one and then practice that what we learned that week by redoing the videos, and they just had access to it during those, that registered period. But then they could use that during that week until the next week. So really beneficial, and it takes away that I can't join because of.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I record all my classes too. Although I did, even though the ribbon that I'm using has video on demand, I just wound up uploading them to YouTube. So, because it was just easier to have, here's your YouTube playlist with the archive of everything. So there you
Yeah.
go.
So did you have
So
them unlisted, and you just,
correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you send out the private link?
Yeah, exactly. So people can check them out afterwards and, um, but yes, but I think the video on demand is great because then it's like it's a nice, tidy thing. Now, would you ever, are those classes that you record, do you ever kind of leave those out there for other people to buy, or are those just
No.
for that community?
Well, I
Yeah.
felt that it was just for that community because they were on them. And
Right, right,
right,
right, right.
because they were live classes, they were on them. But what I did do, here's a little tip for folks that want to do a little upsell. I then had, so for one, I did one series which was called Reboot, and it was a series about getting through COVID, with a sane mind. And so it was about creating healthy habits, and it was a daily
Hmm.
half an hour every single day we met, and then on the weekend we had sessions with psychologists, nutritionists, and all sorts
Oh,
of.
nice.
Yeah, it was really fantastic. It was a very, very powerful program, and one of my most successful programs. Um, Sorry, what was the question on that one though?
we, we were talking, let's see, we were talking about YouTube and whether or not you had things that were, whether you just had those
Oh,
video
the upsell. Yeah,
recordings in
thank you.
house.
Keep me on
Yeah. Or
track
the
here.
upsell.
Yeah. So at the end of it, I had 15 classes recorded that they had all attended. So then I bundled those 15 classes up, and then sold them as a package after, because they lost access to the classes. But
Right.
because they were nice half an hour accessible classes, I did a very good job of a nice little upsell at the end with that content.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. That's a great idea
Yeah.
for folks listening at home for how to kind of make the most of what you're putting out there. And
Yeah.
again, it's a win-win. Like your students, great. They get, I guess, lifetime access or whatever access to those classes.
Exactly.
You get a nice, bonus for that. And then everyone's happy.
Yeah.
So,
So what do you think? What do you think the future is moving forward here
oh my
for yoga
gosh,
teachers? It's a new space, right?
it is. And I mean, it again, although I think that a lot of it is a new space, but I think that the opportunity is to be in business for yourself. So this is something we've touched on
Yeah.
for those. I mean, and it's hard because not everybody feels comfortable, wandering around computers and websites and, kind of building your own. But I'd say the opportunity is to really is to have your own shingle and your own business and be an entrepreneur for yourself. So you don't have to necessarily work for a studio, which I think is great, because sometimes studios are wonderful. I love them for building community, but I love that they can be an option now rather than the only game in town, because it was so hard for newer teachers to even get an opportunity sometimes to practice. And so many teachers have had experiences with studios where they feel like the studios have all the power. So now I think it's a really nice change that you can be like, this is my site, this is my studio is online. And then yes, you can continue to go and teach in-person classes and things like that, but to be able to be the master of your domain is really nice, because some people who, and again, some people may not want to do all that hustling. They might be like, I just want to teach 2 classes a week and I'm happy. But for the people who are like, I want to create a huge library of resources and materials, you can do that now, and you can create like a lot of content if you want to put your back behind it and do that. And, for those who are intimidated, because we don't get into yoga necessarily to become webmasters or web designers, right?
Yeah.
But I'd say,
or business people.
Yeah. I know. So, I mean, I think there's still going to be opportunities. If you're like, that's not for me, I don't like that. You can find online studios to teach through now. Like there's lots of opportunities through things like Yoga International and these different kind of organizations, which want to host teachers who can sort of help you out and manage that side of it if you really don't want to do it. Yeah. But I would suggest, even if you are a little hesitant about that there are ways to, connect with your fellow graduates or people that, like, just like you say, who's in your circles, like, who do you know? There's got to be someone who's, familiar with web. There's got to be someone who's familiar with cameras, where you could do exchanges or trades or something like that to take advantage of the opportunity to be self-sufficient in this space. Yeah. So I think it's going to be, a lot of little websites, but rather than people saying, come see me at this little studio, it'll be come see me online.
Yeah.
Right. And
what do you think about, one thought I've been having is there's a whole year of people that have taken teacher trainings only online. So they haven't had that tactile feeling. They haven't had that feeling of looking out at a sea of bodies, to see if they're all doing the same thing. The camera angles are all different. It's a very different thing. So what do you think these teachers that are in the world now without any in-person teaching experience or training?
Yeah. And this is more speaking to the studios out there, or to enterprising senior teachers. I think we need to have like a weekend workshop on how to teach in person.
Yeah.
So like I would encourage studios who offer teacher trainings, and senior teachers who can just like rent a studio space for, 6 hours or whatever, 3 hours here, 3 hours on Saturday, 3 hours on Sunday, bring them in and get people help people transition into teaching for real life, or it's like, maybe it needs to be 16 hours and not 6, but to walk around in the room, to know how to own your space. Like you were saying, to know how to project to the back of the room, to know, to not get overwhelmed, to help people set up their mats, like all of the basics that you kind of get just through being in studio and through an in-person teacher training. We need to have like a weekend workshop just on those skills. Right.
I love that. I think there's an opportunity for you there, Rachel.
The thing is, like, I want to be in person with people though, because it doesn't work to do that online.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. Well, let's wrap this up. Rachel, I feel like, well, you've already given me an email. We have other subjects to talk about. So this is going to become Coffee with Rachel, or Tea with Rachel. I'm British. But I'm going to ask you 3 questions to wrap this up. So something about you that most people wouldn't know.
I sing opera.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me more. I want to know.
Isn't that fun? Oh, yeah. Well, I used to be an actor back in the day. I was in New York City acting off-Broadway, like crazy weird shows and stuff. And so part of that was I grew up singing. And so when I moved to Vancouver, I found an amazing opera teacher. She's extraordinary. And so because I was just starting to lose my voice and lose my singing because I hadn't been practicing because I was doing yoga all the time,
Yeah.
and not in the arts anymore. And so I started studying with her, and it's really fun. It's the thing that's really fun about opera is just that it's like screaming. It's like beautiful screaming. So you just get all your yayas out. So yoga's so calm, but opera's like, wah! It's like so crazy.
Good release.
Exactly. We need that. We need to have, like, just like we need to do namaste, we have to have dance parties and be crazy too sometimes.
What is your favorite business tool, website, or app right now?
Ooh.
Now,
Oh
you're
my
geeky, so
gosh.
you may have a few.
Oh my gosh. One thing that I use all the time, and it's a little unsung hero, it's a little website tool called 10 to 8. And I do all my appointments through there. People can book with me. I can, it's super easy for people to make appointments with me. It sends them reminders. It's totally free. Because I don't have more than 200 appointments per month. So I can just use this little website and it's just awesome.
Oh, good to know. I'm paying for Calendly.
Yeah. This is free. I mean, and it's like, it has this little ads on it, but I don't mind. It has been totally a little lifesaver for me because, again, as an entrepreneur, it's like we wind up, when we're putting our lives together, we wind up paying for like 20 different services, right? And then it all starts to add up.
I'm in the hundreds of dollars in subscriptions with my business.
Yeah.
But I have to remember, I used to pay thousands of dollars for a yoga studio rent and all the overhead and the teachers and all of that stuff. So when I think about that, it keeps me in check that this is small money compared to that, right? But the subscriptions add up. But I also feel that a lot of the subscriptions are almost like staff. Like they do things that you would hire a staff person for. So, that's worthwhile.
Totally. Yeah. Like I know I only got one, but the other one is Planoly that I use for Instagram. It's so great. And it's like staff. It's like, it helps me prepare all of the Instagram stuff so that you can just do it all in one round. Right.
So you do like a month's worth of content, or how far ahead do you go?
Usually not. I mean, there was a time where I did do a month. And now I might do a week or something like that. Yeah.
So we just had this conversation on one of the other podcasts, but Canva also has that built into it now.
Oh, it does. Okay. Canva makes beautiful stuff.
It has scheduling built in, I think, in the pro version. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. They're picking it up.
And then last one, what is your favorite personal fun website or app?
Okay. Well, I'll just say my favorite, my obsession, I think this counts, is Rich Roll, who runs a podcast. Okay. He is an ultra
ROLE.
ROLL.
Okay.
Rich Roll. And he is he's an ultra marathoner. He's probably around our age. No, he's about 10 years older than us. It's in his 50s. He was a recovering yeah. But you're so youthful.
Cough.
He is a recovering addict. He just has an amazing story, and he brings on. So he's been running this podcast for several years, and it's just, he brings on the most amazing guests with health and wellness and kind of like really progressive science, and very interesting and very positive. And I think he's just a real breath of fresh air. And I love listening I get really inspired by his podcast. So
awesome.
Rich Roll.
I will check that out for sure. And then last, where can people find you? And also, do you have anything that you would like to tell people about, any offers or any things that you're promoting right now? Also, I forgot to say, you also have books as well.
Oh, I got books as well. Yeah.
Books on Amazon. Rachel Scott.
You can find me at Rachel Yoga is my website. And then Rachel, what is it? I'm like, what is my social media handle? Rachel Scott Yoga is all my social media. So if you're a new teacher looking for tips, check out my YouTube channel. I've got tons of stuff on there for new teachers. And Instagram, I just love to stay in touch with people. In fact, I stay in touch with people the way you taught me to stay in touch with people, which is like,
how did I do that?
It's so wonderful. You had this great suggestion where you said, like now, rather than just getting a follow, I get a follower, I follow them back and I check in with them and I say hello. And I've took that so to heart, and I have been doing that for months, and I love it. It creates such a nice feeling of community with the people that I'm connecting with. So
I'm really pleased to hear that, because it creates relationships with people, even though it's virtual, right? And it starts conversations. And I'll just add on to that one. I just did a last minute webinar this week, and I think I got about 35, 36 people onto the webinar in 2 or 3 days. And that was all by sales by chat. And that was just literally having conversation, letting those people I've already had conversations with, I've already built trust with. And then they were, I was able to say, hey, I've got this, blah, blah, blah. If you're interested, let me know if you'd like the link. Right. And I had tons of people come back saying, send me the link and then register it. And so, I think that's a great thing that you're having those conversations. And, I think I said to you, think of it like when they walk in your studio door, if you have a yoga studio, like you would greet them by name. And it's the same thing on social media. You're building relationships, right?
I love that. Yeah. And it demystifies this idea of marketing or, advertising. It demystifies it, because it's like, no, I'm a person connecting with a person, helping. Yeah. Right. And so it's such a wonderful change in perspective, really opens it all up.
All right. Well, and I will put the links to you in the show notes. And Rachel, this is going to be the first of many, I know, because we've got so much more we can talk about. But I want to thank you for your time today, and thanks for being on Yoga Biz Camp.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Rachel. This is Yoga Biz Camp. This is my new by invite only dedicated space to support yoga businesses. It's like Facebook, but without all the noise and clutter. Here you will find all my resources, including free monthly fireside chat business question and answer time with myself, and along with all of my different communities, from studios to solos to the inner circle. Here you'll find guest interviews with leaders in our industry, and as well as all of my free resources, all in one dedicated space. If you're ready to become the next Yoga Biz champ and get private invite into my free community support space, go to yogabizcamp.com, click on Yoga Biz Camp, and I will see you on the inside. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on our podcast. It really helps us out a lot. Thanks a million.